Hi everybody, at long last I am reviewing this beautiful bespoke ensemble, a dress and corset combination by LXG Designs. So here's the front, the side, back, and the other side. Now, this corset was made custom to my body, so the measurements are a bit moot, but for those who are curious, for the length of this corset, the center front here is 12.5 inches. At the apex of the bust here, down to the top of the lap here, at the princess seam is again 12.5 inches. At the side seam here, it is 10.75 inches, and in the center back, it is 13 inches. And for the circumferential measurements, this is considered a low or a gentle reduction corset. Although it is strong enough to be tight laced in, the silhouette means that it's not exactly pulling my waist in quite a lot. So the full bust circumference here is 34.5 inches. The waist here is 25 inches, so it's only pulling in my waist about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And the upper hip here is 31 inches. So while I'm modeling this for you in HD, unlike the previous video where everything conspired against me, I'm going to talk a little bit about LXG Designs in general and also point out some really neat features about this before I show you the close-up details. So because LXG Designs has a bit of a sparse presence on social media, I asked a little bit more about her experience and her history. Laura says that she studied fashion design in Colombia, so she started working in a sewing factory from the age of 18 as a stitcher, a cutter, and a pattern drafter. She started making corsets in the year 2000, and she makes everything from sweet ensembles like this to historical reproductions to basically anything you can imagine, including things that I can't mention on this channel, otherwise my videos might get demonetized. For many years, she's done manufacturing and design for other fashion designers and companies that want to outsource their work, but she has recently started taking custom commissions, including custom lingerie, swimwear, and bridal wear, but she says that corsetry is her favorite. She says that she's a perfectionist when it comes to clean seams and finishing, which I can definitely tell at the quality of this corset, and her willingness to take back the first design and rework it. Laura says that she's working on her new website with new pictures and information, and she's also working on her social media launch at the moment, but she is currently open for commissions if you kind of want to get ahead of the game. You can see that the corset has a sweetheart top edge, which is parallel to the upper line of the dress so that they work together beautifully, but they can also be worn as separate pieces if you choose. The dress is a mermaid style with a center back split, which really accentuates the kind of mermaid fins at the bottom. The bow at the top reinforces this split, and then there's an explosion of black tulle ruffles in the back split. The bottom of the skirt is reinforced with horsehair and also weights to make sure that the skirt drapes and moves properly. So now let's go on to the tabletop portion of this review, and I can show you the other details of this close-up. Okay, so here is the LXG Designs overbust laid flat on the table here, and for the materials I feel at least 3 layers in here. So the fashion fabric is of course this beautiful silver kind of lilac cool purple, and it has an interlining obviously in between the layers, and it has this fun cotton lining that is, you know, shades of purple but also some beige and gray in here. It complements it quite well. And this is what the label looks like. It is on the Modesty panel of the corset, just hand sewn on here, as well as the cleaning instructions. And if you'd like to see what the label looks like that came on it originally, here's the tag with her social media and links here, and this was just pinned on to the front here, so you can just remove that once you receive the item. And turning this corset on its side, it does not like to sit flat because of the floofy skirt here, but it has 6 full-length panels here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. The first 3 panels pretty much come to not quite the side seam here. It's a little bit more forward, and it has actually two additional little gussets here. To add more fullness in the bust here. And what I really like about this particular corset is that if you are what they call an east-wester, or if you have wide set breasts, this actually allows for some of that flesh to distribute not only in the front but also sit nicely and settle in on the sides of the body here. So you don't get a ton of that corset overflow at the armpit here. You don't get that squidge by the armpit. So that's really, really nice. And it shows a knowledge of basic anatomy when you're actually drafting the pattern. Of course, it's going to be different for each person, but it worked out really, really well for me and my body type specifically. And then, like I said, Laura had modified this pattern, and so she added a little bit more space in the back, both to account for spillover and also to correct the measurements here. So that's why this 6th panel is a little bit wider. But you can also see the beautiful hand beading done. This was added on. This was not included in the original design, but she did this all by hand. And the beading for the corset ended up taking a total of 48 hours by herself for the corset part. And then the skirt, the beading there was done by her and her mother at the same time, and it took them both 40 hours working on it simultaneously. So there's a lot of love and dedication that went into this outfit. And this corset was constructed using the sandwich method. It's very, very flat and smooth along the seams here, and I can tell that the seams were pressed open, and she stay stitched along both sides of the seam here. And of course, it's double boned on the seams. They are straddling those seams right there. And I can also see that the stitch work goes right through to the lining side, which confirms that it is indeed the sandwich method. You can see a very, very faint outline of the waist tape here. So it's 1 inch wide, and it's running right from this first panel all the way through to the 6th panel here. And it's obviously an invisible waist tape. It's sandwiched in between the layers here. And it's also secured down at each seam. And if you it's sort of hard to tell, but if you look at it from this angle, it ever so slightly slants slightly downwards towards the front. And this is what a lot of Victorian corsets did, because even if you look at modern trousers, you'll notice that the back waistline is a little bit higher than the front waistline, and the body's natural waist is not completely horizontal. It's not completely parallel with the ground. It does tend to go a little bit downwards. That's why I made that previous video about the right way to put on your corset, and to make sure that the front of the corset is angled slightly downwards so that it properly covers and supports your lower tummy, as opposed to just, slapping it on and hoping for the best. So in this particular situation, it kind of assists that for you by having the waist slant downwards in the first place. So this is not a bug, this is a feature of the corset. The top binding is made from matching strips of this lilac satin, machine stitched on both outside and inside. I believe she started with the inside here and then wrapped it over to the outside and did a really tiny top stitch here. And on the inside center front here, she also hand sewed on this hook and eye to keep the front from splaying at the bust. And the binding at the bottom is actually the cotton lining, which I found really cute. And this was also machine finished, and you can see that the tulle skirt was actually sewn right into the binding there, so that's how it was cleanly finished. And because it was sewn upwards and then it allows gravity to let it hang down, that adds to the volume and the floofiness, so that it always kind of kicks out and it doesn't really fall And the Modesty panel in the back of this corset is about 6.5 inches wide. So I would say that's about 4.5 inches of usable space. So it accommodates a lacing gap of about 4 inches, and it will still cover quite nicely. It's unstiffened, sewn onto one side of the corset here, and I believe it is integrated into the rest of the corset and into the lining here. So if you don't like Modesty panels, if you were to remove this, it might affect the integrity of the lining here. You would have to take scissors to cut it out. So again, if you hate Modesty panels, make sure that you request no Modesty panel, and Laura won't add one in for you. The busk used in this corset is about 11 inches long, and it has 5 loops and pins, all equidistantly spaced. It is a standard flexible busk, which means it's 1/2 inch on each side with a white flexible bone, but it is further reinforced by another flat steel bone, 1/4 inch wide, on either side of the bust to give it a little bit more rigidity. But you can see that this is designed to be rather flexible in the front here. If once again, Laura's designs are all custom, so if you prefer a more rigid busk, she can put a heavy duty busk in there for you. And there are a total of 26 bones in this corset, 13 on each side. So you can see here that they all pretty strongly attract my magnet here. And in terms of the types of the boning in here, of course, you have the flat steels in the center front and center back here, but Laura uses a more flexible type of flat steel boning. So if you have, for instance, lordosis and you need less rigid bones in the back of this corset, Laura can do that for you. If you specifically want more rigid bones, then you will have to specifically request that. And so just counting the bones here, not including the center front busk here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13 here in the center back here. So you can see it's mostly double boned on the seams here. And here's a close-up of the back, both the lacing system, the grommets here, and also the beautiful hand beading in the back. So there are a total of 30 size 0 grommets finished in silver with a large flange around them. And these are the sort of heavy-duty style grommets that is used in many waist training corsets. So these are almost impossible to rip out. There's no damage or wear to the fabric around these grommets. You can see that they're all holding in really well here, and they're really cleanly inserted. Here's a quick view of the underside. All of them have rolled really nicely. Very few cracks or splits around them. The couple that are there, it does not catch on the laces, thankfully. The laces go smoothly through the grommets here. And in the back of this corset, Laura used this 1/2 inch wide double-faced satin ribbon laced with the chevron style lacing here, but she also included in the box some shoelace style lacing, just in case I had a preference of one over the other. Once again, since all of her corsets are made to order, you can request a specific type of lacing if you want. And I don't want this video to run too long, but I did want to show a close-up of the beautiful work in the skirt and the dress here, because there's quite a lot of detail here as well. And if you look at the inside here, there is a lining in the dress, but there is one portion where it was not tacked down to the lining so that the ruffles could sort of explode out. So you can see how the beadwork was done here. All hand done. It's amazing. And you don't see any of the running stitches on the outside here. You can also see how the edges of the skirt were reinforced with this horsehair. And there's just so much fluff in the back of this skirt here. I love it. And here is the really clean stitch work here at the very top of the split here. And the bow also finished with beading. And the bow is actually technically 3 bows, layered one on top of the other. So there was a lot of thought and consideration that goes into this outfit, and the more I study it, the more details pop out at me. So it was definitely a project. LXG Designs creates both custom garments and also ready-to-wear corsets. Her custom corsets start at $500 US, and her custom ensembles, including evening gowns and wedding dresses, start at $2,000. Because of the heavy hand beading, which took over 48 hours for the corset alone, and an additional 40 hours for the skirt, both her and her mother working on it at the same time. That is quite a lot of hours. So taking that into consideration, this ensemble, if you wanted an exact replica of it, would start at about $3,800. So this officially makes this my most expensive corset in my collection. And she says that although that sounds like quite a lot, she says that includes as many mock-ups and 12 fittings as is needed to make sure that the fit is totally perfect. So whether that's one mock-up, whether that's 5, she says that she is a perfectionist and she will go through it as many times as is needed to get the fit perfect for you. If you go back and watch my unboxing and story time and first impressions of this, you realize that we didn't have that mock-up process, but we used the way that the first corset fit as kind of like my mock-up for her to modify this corset and get it right the second time around. So that's not going to be the case for you if you decide to commission her for an ensemble similar to this. She says that she will go through as many different mock-ups as is needed to get the fit perfect, and that is included in the price. So I hope you all enjoyed this review and you learned something new. If you did, please remember to click that like button down there, as it helps support this channel and it helps the algorithm do its magic. If you have any comments or questions about this corset and ensemble, or about LXG Designs in general, feel free to leave your comment down below. I'd be happy to get back to you. And if you own anything from LXG Designs, if you have commissioned her in the past, I'm sure many people would be curious to know your thoughts. So feel free to leave your comment and your review in the comment down below, and I'm sure many of us would be glad to read it. So thank you again for watching this video all the way to the end, and I will see you next time for another video.